The Cold War, a time of tension, competition, and most importantly, secrets. The USA and the USSR sent out spies constantly to see what was going on.
One example of a secret operation was the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet government wanted to influence the newly formed communist government in Cuba. Khrushchev decided to place missiles in Cuba, and the Cuban government completely approved of this. The government wanted this to be a highly top-secret operation. High-ranking officials to soldiers were told that the missiles were going to Siberia. To prove this, they also filled the soldiers' suitcases with winter clothes. This fooled both the Allies and Soviets. Even though careful measures were taken, the Soviet government was not able to hide the missiles from aerial observation. A U-2 spy plane took a photograph of the missiles, and the American government ordered the Soviets to remove the missiles from Cuba. In a message from Khrushchev to Stalin, he says,
"We must dismantle the missiles to make Cuba into a zone of peace."
This message talks about how Khrushchev wants to take the weapons back to the Soviet Union because only America will lose nothing and gain good public opinion. Khrushchev backed down and agreed to take out all the missiles from Cuba. This crisis showed how the American intelligence was not very adept at keeping up with foreign plans and for a brief time showed Soviet superiority.
In this editorial note, the United States warns the Soviets to remove the missiles from Cuba.
During the Cold War, both the Soviet Union and the United States were reaching new heights in technology. They used these new inventions to create top-level espionage equipment. One of these inventions was the U-2 plane. Made by the Americans, the U-2 plane had a wingspan of 103 feet and could fly from New York to Moscow without running out of fuel. This made the U-2 plane extremely effective for espionage missions. In 1960, a U-2 plane flying over Russia was shot down after being discovered due to an oil leak. It was found that the plane was being used in an American covert operations mission after the remains of the plane and surviving pilot, Francis Gary Powers, were brought forward by the Soviets. The United States at first denied such allegations, but finally admitted to the crime when the evidence was produced. The incident was a huge propaganda item for the Soviets, as they used it to portray the Americans negatively, and it further deteriorated American-Soviet relations. Francis Gary Powers wrote about his verdict and trial in his book, Trial of an American U-2 Spy Plane. In a note from the United States to the USSR, the United States wants to know the fate of the pilot and the plane.
In 1952, during the Korean War and leadership of Mao Zedong, the CIA sent a covert surveillance team to China in order to destroy the communist regime. Unbeknownst to the CIA, the team had already been discovered and turned by the Chinese and were being used to lure the CIA into China. The mission was a debacle and overall very amateurish and disastrous. The Chinese, who were supposed to help the CIA, were swindlers and turned the CIA team over to the Chinese government. The pilots of the original surveillance team died in China. Downey and Ficto, the surviving operatives, were returned to the United States 20 years after the incident occurred. The incident was not a high point for the CIA at all. On the contrary, it was covered up as much as possible until recent rediscovery. It further strained relationships between the United States and Beijing and continues to hinder complete Chinese-American cooperation efforts.
Ajak Ames was a Russian CIA counterintelligence officer, responsible for the most damaging penetration in the agency's history. His job was to recruit Russian intelligence officers to spy in the United States. In 1985, he was offered to spy for the Soviets, and he gave them classified information on their technical operations, and he gave them the identities of the CIA and FBI operatives in the Soviet Union. At least 10 CIA assets were executed because of him, and he blew more than 100 covert operations, revealed the identities of at least 30 Western spies, and he identified many of the United States agents that were currently spying in the Soviet Union. When he was caught, he was sentenced to life in prison, and his wife, Rosario Ames, was also sentenced to prison for simply helping him. Kim Philby was one of the more important Soviet spies according to the KGB. He was the most successful Soviet spy of the Cold War. He was part of the Cambridge spy ring, which was also known as the Cambridge Five, and it included him and 4 other main agents, which were Anthony Blood, Guy Burgess, Donald MacLean, and Jonathan Cairncross. Philby spent time on official missions in the United States, where he had access to American counter-espionage efforts, sensitive nuclear intelligence, and military secrets. George Blake was an interesting case. In World War I, he served in the Dutch Resistance, the British Navy, and MI6, which was the British Foreign Intelligence Agency. And after World War II, he was posted to Seoul in Korea. Blake also became a Russian agent in 1961, and he compromised 42 British agents and had them executed, which, when he was eventually arrested, was sentenced to 42 years in prison, one for each of the agents. He was exposed as a Russian spy in MI6 by a Polish defector, and he pretty much caused the MI6 British operations to not be trusted by the CIA for quite a while.
CIA agent was very difficult, considering that the spy had to be able to perform very amazing feats. One of the many jobs of the spy would be to take candid videos of enemies. Others would simply turn to killing. But spies have to be extremely careful. Their lives are always in danger.
Okay, talk.
No. Yeah, go follow. Let me push you over.
No,